Dev Diary, episode 5. I've added quite a lot since I last saw you, and the first thing I did was solve my speed issue that I was having last time. I went on a bit of an optimization spree, so just going through all my if statements, of which I had quite a few, specifically in the physics section. Here I would have, problems as I was trying to implement something, and I would find that adding the odd little if statement to physics solved whatever problem I was having at the time. So that sort of ended up with a lot of if statements that started out fairly similarly because they're all nested within each other. So I was able to amalgamate them into each other to compile them down. So I'm doing the same thing but with less if statements. And I don't think it was necessarily that optimization process that solved the speed problem, but more the double buffering routine. So when I get to the point where it switches the bitmaps, I was using an if statement to switch from one to switch the bitmap counter to the other bitmap. And someone on the Blitz Facebook group pointed out to me that I could just do, if I can find it, there it is, remove that if statement and replace it with just, instead of if dB equals 1, dB equals 0, if dB equals 0, dB equals 1, I can now just do dB equals 1 minus dB, and that accomplishes the same thing with much less CPU time. And I think that change is what solved the speed problem. Anyway, since then I've implemented an enemy, which was exciting. I got to draw a tomato and draw some different frames. I've animated it. And then I thought, well, that was fun. Let's implement being able to shoot the tomato and kill it, which we can do. There it goes, bouncing off on its little patrol. I also solved this bug with that. And there's the surprise. It can hit me, and when it does, if you keep an eye on the life total down here, that was 5 hearts, it's now 4. And you get some invincibility frames when you get hit, which is why I was flashing. So as long as you're flashing, you've been hit, you've lost a life. Not a life, but a bit of your health. And you can't be hit again for a few seconds until you stop flashing. Now let's try and shoot one. They're tricky little buggers, especially when you're trying to hold a camera with one hand. I've got a death animation for them as well. Oh yeah, that's the other surprise. Once I implemented one tomato, I thought, I wonder if the game can actually handle me throwing the tomatoes into an array and having loads of them. Well, 3 of them. Have they all wandered off the screen? I think they might have done. Okay, that might be a bug. Let's recompile this and have a look. Perhaps when I shoot one of them, that changes one of the variables that causes them to lose their patrol pattern. So he goes this way. I'm not going to worry about losing lives now because they're... Yeah, then he turns around. This guy... Yeah, he turns around. He turns around. Okay. They're patrolling as they should at the moment. Okay, what happens when I shoot one? A little splat animation there. So when I shoot one, are they still turning around? Oops. Well, that's also a bug, because I didn't shoot that guy. And he died. Ah, perhaps because he was at the position where the ball would be if it existed. You see what I mean? So there's definitely still bugs to iron out, to find. But I'm pretty pleased with what I've got going on so far now with the implemented health bar, which is now all completely depleted because I've been running around getting hit, invincibility frames, enemies, multiple enemies, and a smoothly running loop so far. Someone on the group, or a few people on the group, expressed an interest in having a little bit of a look at the code, so I'll give it a quick run through. The first section just initializes the two cop lists. I've got a little cop list at the bottom of the screen, just a tiny one that has the heart shapes on it and the score total. The next section just is get a shape, get a shape, get a shape, get a shape, just literally cutting all of my software sprites out of a sprite sheet. Multiples of them have to be copied and then flipped to get the opposite direction, so when you're walking right or when you're walking left, that kind of thing. I have a bunch of variables. I'm intending to put most of these into another new type for the player, but when I started out I didn't really know how many variables the player was going to need, so I just sort of kept going until the point where I think I know I can just shove all of these into a new type, like I've done with the fruit here. So this new type fruit, basically everything that's not the player is a fruit in some way, shape or form. Either it just has an X, a Y and an exist if it's something like a strawberry, but also the tomatoes are a fruit, helpfully. Tomatoes are actually a fruit anyway, so. Funnily, the broomstick is also a fruit, and I've never eaten a broomstick before, but anyway, it just works to keep it as that new type. Now that just all sets up all the variables and stuff, and this just gives the blocks locations. Escape statement just gives me the ability to press the escape key to get out of the loop when I need to. Right, I will skip the joy move statements and just go straight to main loop for now. So that starts off with, there's the copper list, all that display RGB stuff. That does the funky colours, changing the colour pen for the gradient effect. Set up some buffers for double buffering and a buffer for the bottom screen. I think it was, yeah, buffer for the bottom screen. The bottom cop list, I should say. And then the actual game starts, the actual loop starts where the word repeat is, where it says loop start. So it calls the escape statement, and then I do my little physics logic bit, including momentum and direction of travel, so that when you fall off a ledge, you don't just fall straight down, you fall in the direction that you were walking, even if you let go of the stick. Now this bit is the reason I skipped those over those other two statements, because this basically selects what the joystick does. So if you've picked up the broom, then it calls the room on the broom joystick movement statement, and if you're just walking, it calls joy move. And that has also enabled me to shove a bunch of the collision detection that's specific to either the broom or the player walking sprite into each of those statements, so it's only running the collision detection for those when it needs to be, which is helpful for optimization's sake. Not running stuff we don't need to be as good. And then there's the tomato patrolling. This I've just written, and I can optimize it because I can take out a couple of the ifs and amalgamate each of these two into one and each of these two into one. But I just found it easier to debug and work out what the problems was when there were separate, each was a separate if statement. So the start of the patrol, the end of the patrol, start of the bounce and the end of the bounce. Seems like I've still got, from that little bit that we saw, got a few bugs to fix, but I will continue working on that. What comes next? Where are we? Tomato. So yeah, then there's the animations, just a frame counter, and helps me change the shape number that I'm displaying for the walking animation and the tomato bouncing animation and stuff like that. Then there's the new invincibility frames logic, part of the double buffering, collisions for things like strawberries and the broom, and then practically towards the end of the loop we finally do the drawing. So B-blit, buffered blit, the character, the strawberries if they've not been eaten, the broom if it's not been picked up, the tomatoes if they haven't been shot, and then this little area just updates the score total and the health bar, the hearts. And I've called it debug output because it allows me to just, if I need to know, if I'm trying to solve a problem and I need to know what the contents of a certain variable is, like if a number is switching as I want it to, I can just add, like I've added Tom's turnaround here, which I don't need anymore because I solved that. I can just add that to the bottom cop list and get a visual, actual printout of what the number is in that variable at that moment, and find that really helpful for solving problems. And then the last bits we've got are just the fire button shooting the ball, and then the scrolling, which is very simple at the moment, but I'll have to get more in depth when I start doing tile mapping, which I will get round to, but got carried away with tomatoes and invincibility frames. Yeah, and that is my game at the moment. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.